Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is our fourth annual Diverse Populations Mixer hosted by CAGT. And today we have two wonderful guests with us. My name is Cecilia Quintanilla. Me and Vanessa are co-chairs for the Diverse Population in CAGT, and we're very excited to highlight the wonderful work that Dr. Bianco and Alessandra are doing. So I work at Denver Public Schools. I'm an early childhood teacher, but I'm also a gifted and talented specialist. I started because my daughter is gifted, and then I just loved it, and I identify myself as gifted too. So I'm really proud to be part of CAGT now and try to work a little bit for our Latina community also. And here's Vanessa.
And I'm Dr. Vanessa Ewing. I've been involved in CAGT for quite a long time now. I'm happy to be one of the two diverse population chairs. I have a lot of extra passion, both personally and professionally, also related to twice exceptionality. And we're just so excited to be hosting these two amazing individuals. It took me a while in Denver to hear of the amazing Dr. Margarita Bianco. And then it came to me through Dr. Cameron Hayes and some of my own research as well, along with Dr. Donna Ford, Dr. Joy Lawson Davis, where I started hearing about all of her wonderful work. I just wanted to share a little bit on Dr. Bianco's bio before we get started officially. She is the associate professor at CU Denver, bringing 5 decades of experience in K-12 education systems, both locally and internationally. With a profound commitment, she has founded the Pathways to Teaching to inspire high school students from marginalized backgrounds to pursue teaching, challenging the educational inequities that they continue to face. She also focuses on supporting underrepresented gifted students in her impactful work, including some work in twice exceptionality and beyond. Dr. Bianco, we'd love to hear from you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have the slides ready? Okay. So I first want to say, and let me know, okay, there they are. I first just want to say thank you for this invitation to be here tonight. My heart has been involved in gifted education since my doctoral work. My dissertation was really looking at teacher perceptions of students with disabilities and whether they were gifted or not. So that whole twice exceptionality and marginalized populations who are not referred to gifted. So thank you so much to this organization and group for the invitation to be here. Next slide. So I was asked tonight to say a few things that are in my heart. So I have a few minutes to kind of talk to you about the things that I think about and I feel passionately about. And the first thing that I want to say is that I have such an appreciation for the hard work of being a great teacher. So this year, actually last year, was my 50th year as an educator. So 5 decades of being a teacher, whether it's in elementary, high school, or higher ed. I did do 1 year in middle school, and I'll never do that again. But anyway, so 50 years as an educator, I have a deep appreciation for the hard work that teachers do. And so I really want to dedicate, tonight to you, to all of you, whether you're gifted ed or special ed or gen ed or whatever content area, teachers are so important. So tonight is really about appreciating teachers, but also a call to action. You can go to the next slide. So again, recognizing teachers, it's really hard work and it requires time away from your family. Sometimes it requires finances, your own personal finances that could be something for your family instead. Your hard work in making sure that students thrive. I mean, as a mom, my son is now 30 and very successful, and he's super successful because of the amazing teachers that he had. Unfortunately, my experience was different. I'm an amazing teacher only because I didn't have great ones. And so I had to become a teacher to be the teacher I never had. But for him, it was a different experience. So teachers provide that comfort when students need it. They also take their sacrifices away from their own children to plan and work and spend time on weekends getting their class ready. So I just want to say to all the teachers out there, you're seen, you're heard, and you're appreciated. Next slide. So also this is kind of a call to action. So much of my work lately has been around encouraging young students, especially students of color, to think about becoming educators. And so I ask you as teachers and fellow educators, do you encourage your students to think about becoming teachers or becoming educators? And if not, why? So if you're not loving your profession enough to encourage other people to do the same thing, then you need to ask yourself whether you need to be here in those classroom spaces or not anymore. And I mean that sincerely because we have a critical teacher shortage throughout the country in so many different discipline areas, right? Special education, English as a second language, gifted ed. So when we think about the shortages that we have and the students that are impacted the most by these shortages are the Black and brown kids who live in poor communities. So we need to, as educators, encourage our young people to think about becoming teachers, especially thinking about becoming teachers with endorsements or masters in gifted and talented education. And the reason being, if we look at who's in our gifted education programs and who's not just in Colorado, but around the country, it's really a legal form of segregation. So this is a politically charged conversation. But if we look at the demographics of who's in our gifted programs, we'll see that it's predominantly white affluent students, even in communities of color. Next slide. So, although people will argue with me about, I don't want to encourage students to become teachers because they can get a job somewhere else. This is such a terrible time to become a teacher because we're under attack. I'll argue that there's no better time to become a teacher than now because our profession is under attack. Our knowledge and what we want to do to develop critical consciousness in students is under attack. If we look at the book bannings, if we look at the bannings of DEI work around the country, if we look at we can look at AP classes, right, in African American studies and what's now been banned in terms of what we can teach and what we can't teach. There's no better time for us to encourage critically conscious social justice teachers to think about the profession and how we can engage in fighting and pushing back against these systems of oppression that are really perpetuating what we have in our school system now, which is dumbing down what we teach our students. When we think about, so that last picture over there where it says GT is a Latino issue, for me, this is personal. So when we look at GT classes in Colorado, which has a really high population of Latino and Latina students, and even around the country, we're not represented in those GT classes, right? So we're represented more heavily in special education services programs. But, my colleague and my late friend, Dr. Jaime Castellano once said, you don't have to speak English to be gifted. So we have to really recognize that multilingual learners and the Latino population in Colorado and elsewhere are also gifted. Next slide. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. Again, a sincere appreciation to all of our teachers. And please take the call to action seriously in terms of encouraging your students to think about themselves as future educators. And I'm happy to engage in conversation with anybody. My email is there, so please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your tireless efforts. Cecilia?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bianco. Now I am going to introduce Alessandra Rodriguez. Alessandra has been in the educational field for several years, in GT as well. In her more recent years, she's been working at the district office for Denver Public Schools as a curriculum specialist. And I am fortunate enough to have worked with Alessandra all this time together, very closely together. I really enjoy working with her because she's very passionate about what we are going to talk about, giftedness, and what the subject we're going to take to parents or educators, or if we're in a conference. So it's really exciting to work with her. She's part of Gifted and Talented Leaders of Color and Allies, and also part of Yachay Bolivia for the Neurodivergent. And with that, she's on forums for educators all over the state. I know she's an advisor for families, not only in our state, but outside too, all over our country. And I think internationally too, we're always like trying to find resources to send families or educators that need specific support with their Latinx students. So yes, Alessandra today is going to talk to us about wonderful things that have been happening in Denver Public Schools. And I just closed my whole window after Dr. Bianco, so I just need a second to bring your presentation. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you, Ceci, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for being here with us tonight and for the invitation. I will get started just sharing a little bit more about myself. As Cecilia mentioned, my name is Alessandra Rodriguez. And we'll go to...
Why is it not letting me do anything now? I'm so sorry. Won't let me mute.
That's okay.
Won't let me, and I have your presentation up. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think it was just my computer being crazy. There you go. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. We can go to slide 2. Perfect. I am multilingual. My native language is Spanish. I am from Venezuela and moved to the United States at the age of 13. Stepping into my current role as a curriculum specialist in Denver Public Schools have helped me realize the many challenges that I face coming into a new school, a new everything when I was a freshman. And one of those challenges being learning a new language. But at the same time, I did so at an accelerated pace, ended up skipping one of those levels and exiting the program quicker, which actually made my senior year challenging in other ways. And I think part of that is my why and why I'd like to share and talk to families, particularly Spanish-speaking families, about what is giftedness, what that may look like, what can they do. And one question that I keep hearing is, after the families hear, like, my child is gifted, now what? So I'm hoping to be able to speak to that a little more today. I have been a Montessorian, so my teaching experience have been in Montessori charter schools, including dual language Montessori classroom. And last fall, which I feel very excited and proud of, I joined Front Range Community College and started 2 of the first fully Spanish asynchronous courses for early childhood, and currently teaching 3 of those. So I hope to continue doing that work, and it's actually continuing to grow in Front Range. And as Ceci mentioned already, the 2 associations I'm part of. Okay, and today I'll get started just exploring some of those GT characteristics more specific to language learners, interacting or sharing some instructional strategies, and then focusing on some of our DPS initiatives that have supported the increase of identification for Hispanic, Latino students and multilingual learners. Okay. The list that I have here as far as GT characteristics, of course, is not extensive, but some of the traits that we may see is that the students are able to read in their native language 2 grades above their grade level or more. They have a sense of global community and awareness of other cultures and languages. Excels in math achievement tests when language ability is not a factor, and something that I haven't wanted to make sure I mention, but Dr. Bianco already mentioned earlier, was that piece of our students don't need to master English before they can be in any GT programming, which is, I often hear that when working with teachers, as far as like, oh, but they have to go to the ELD classroom. And so it's how do we overcome that barrier of, yes, they can receive the ELD programming, but are also have the right to be part of GT, gifted and talented programming. Demonstrate an ability to code switch or translate at an advanced level. Actively leads their multilingual peers in translanguaging, which means they can access all languages that they know in order to generate or share ideas, and learn a second or third language at an accelerated pace. And again, those are just some of the very extensive characteristics that we may see. For the strategies, so on the next slide, oops, one of our, are you able to, I think you should be able to scroll down. So in this document, we have, or this year, through different conferences, we've been at the CAGT conference, the DPS Biliteracy conference, CAGT, we were there last year. And it's one of the tools that we have tried to share further because it allows, so on the first column, it has characteristics that are specific to language learners. And then in the middle column, we started to gather differentiation strategies that teachers can use in the classroom. And maybe some of this may be beneficial for families as well. We had our professional learning day last Friday, and we share those again with our GT teachers in the district. And the feedback that we're getting is it's very positive. So that is embedded in the presentation, which I will share later, so you can have access to that resource. On the next, and something I want to mention about the previous one, something that we're highlighting there is that sequential bilinguals and simultaneous bilinguals, because I feel like at first when I heard language learners, I thought of mostly students learning a second language, but then also keeping in mind those simultaneous students who are learning both at the same time. Some strategies for families is providing enrichment opportunities outside of school, encouraging curiosity and imagination, exploring school options that support child's interest. And on that first one, enrichment opportunities, at the end on the list of resources, I added, then it's actually the list that we worked on for summer resources. So I invite everyone to check those out. It has a wide variety of links and opportunities that students could join over the summer. Career exploration, opening to receptive to interest, and allowing opportunities for students to explore. And I think through the different sessions that Cecilia and I have been doing in Spanish, one of the questions that we get often is, but they want to learn about planets and I don't know what to tell them or how to explain blank. And so thinking about the opportunities that can be given through other resources that the students can have access to. Before I get started on DPS initiatives, does anyone has comments, feedback, questions?
Alessandra, do you have a way to share that differentiation sheet that you showed?
Yes, I can do that.
And I was thinking for summer opportunities or outside opportunities and the presentation, we can give an email at the end for anyone who's listening to this as a recording. And
Yes.
we will be sure to put it in the GTLCA website also.
That's right. And Mark, I just share the link in the chat. If you have any challenges, let me know. I think it should be open for everyone to view because that's the same link from previous presentations. So I don't think that's specific to DPS. And yes, Vanessa, and I do have those hyperlinked. So everyone watching and accessing this later on should be able to open those. Okay, thank you. And all right, we can go to the next one. Something I wanted to highlight, and I don't know how this slide ended up after DPS initiatives, but I just wanted to share a little bit more about my experience. And Ceci, if you want to go to the next one, my experience in the dual language Montessori classroom, which when I started taking my PDUs through Denver Public Schools, which is how I met Vanessa, and then I started my journey in Gifted and Talented. I feel very grateful to be in a Montessori classroom because a lot of that strength-based and acceleration and small group instruction I was already doing in the lower elementary classroom, so first, second, and third grade classroom. And I feel like it was a safe space for me to try the different strategies that I was learning at the moment. However, something that was even more exciting than being able to implement those strategies was when I started dual language. So it was an 80-20 model, 80% of the time fully Spanish instruction. And I truly saw the Spanish speaker students flourish with what they were learning, the way they participated, which I wasn't able to see in the same way before. And through that, just learning so much more of what that looks like for our Spanish speakers. Okay, now I'll move on to DPS initiatives. Last fall, and Vanessa, feel free to add if I forget anything, but last fall, we started piloting the Naglieri General Abilities Test, so NGAT. One of the ways in which this assessment is different to the NNAT is that it has no written words. So all of the instructions, it is fully visual, and it does assess the verbal, nonverbal, and quantitative reasoning abilities. We only piloted in a few, different schools at second grade level, but this will be the assessment that moving forward we'll be using for all our second grade universal screeners. And it did have, compared to our universal screener from last year, it did increase representation of different demographics, and particularly our multilingual learners, which is really exciting. Okay, another initiative that we started last year was reviewing Access Scores and starting to use Access Scores as a qualifying data point. And if you're wondering what Access is, it's an assessment for multilingual learners that measure their English language proficiency. And this assessment is used from kindergarten to 12th grade. So we looked at 6 years of data. This includes students who are currently receiving MLL services or that have exited. As long as the data was there, we looked at that. 2 different ways in which we're using this as qualifying scores is by an accelerated achievement. And so that may look like increasing their literacy or overall composite score by 2 or more points in 1 year. This is considered a qualifying score. The second way is with the growth percentiles, and that is a 95th percentile growth in 1 year. That is also a qualifying score. So this, along one more data point, will allow us to fully identify students. And if we go to this next page, this was the outcome of our data of review from 2022, 2023. We were able to identify 239 new gifted and talented students and 64 highly gifted and talented students, make talent pool recommendations, and were able to add strength areas through this process as well. We reviewed a total of 23,855 students through that data dive, and we will do the same over the summer. And anytime that we get to identify a student using access data is extremely exciting, to say the least. Questions, comments about that?
I was going to say out
Yeah,
of the 5,
congratulations. That is
Yeah.
fantastic. That's wonderful. That makes me very happy.
over the last year, I think out of the 5,396 that were in talent pool, meaning they had some data, but not quite for full identification yet, many hundreds more have moved out of that talent pool and into a full identification at this point as well. So the number is much higher than the, over 300 that you're seeing on number 1.
That's right. Thank you for mentioning that, because this was numbers back from April 2023. Yeah. Ceci, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if if there's also like a data dive on the talent pool, and like why aren't they being identified, or if this is pushing to the district to look at other ways.
Do you mean why students in talent pool have not been identified yet?
Yeah, like formally identify, right? Because could be many reasons, but like, is there a trend, or is it like a specific population, or like, is this pushing the district to look at other stuff, considering other things?
I think go ahead.
Because we have more pathways of identification, right? New ones, like, are those a result of the dive in the talent pool, or like, I don't know, I'm just wondering.
And I think that speaks a little bit to what Vanessa was sharing, because number one, when the year started, last year, it was so new that some people were not as just familiar with the different pathways yet. So that could be a barrier as far as like moving forward. But I personally, with my own cohort, one of my priorities when meeting with teachers was to pull that access data again and thinking through what are next steps for the students. Like, what would they do? Assign an observation scale, collect anecdotal. If it was more academic, then also scheduling or looking through those more of academic scores, or nominating students for cognitive testing if they don't have one yet. So I do wonder after the summer how different these numbers are going to be, and how that hopefully positively impacted our disparity data.
Cool.
Thank you.
I do have one more question, and you might or might not know this. What do their talent areas tend to be, those 303 students? Like in our school district, we've also had a lot of success with this, and we're typically identifying them as Tier 3 gifted in general intellectual ability with the talent in world languages. I'm just curious what you guys are doing.
That is a great question. So as far as what the areas where it's going to depend on what else did we have for the student, I oftentimes is GIA. And if they have other data points for reading and writing or math, social studies, science, we added those as well. I would love to learn more about how your district is identifying in world languages.
Yeah, that's a piece that we're still developing in our district in the world languages. And then creativity, we're finding we're just now starting to do a lot more in terms of identifications in the creativity realm with the Torrance tests as well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Thank you. And I will reach out with questions about world language.
Mhm.
Okay. The last resource I'm going to share today and bring up is our multilingual education department has used this acronym SURF to support language development at our district. S standing for student talk, E, explicit academic language instruction, access to rigorous grade level content, extensive use of visuals, and learning environment. And so throughout this year, what we worked on was using their acronym and then tying those to specific strategies for gifted and talented students. And this is also posted in their MLE website and available for MLL teachers, and something that we have tried as well to share more. So as they're planning, they can use these resources to tie it to what the students will be working on. Okay. Well, that is as far as sharing what I had for today. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would love to go back one slide again to read what the acronym.
Oh, yeah. As far as like what?
So we're trying to highlight, I can see, you know, ability grouping with others with similar academic skills when they're in groups so that they can continue building their academic skills. And this was, I would assume, part of getting other content area and MLE teachers to also recognize, like, how can I do these gifted and talented things while also teaching language?
Yep.
That is correct. Yes. And so part of it is because the original document is heavily focused on the language development piece, but it had room for sharing just more as far as like, okay, while developing that language, what can you also do for your gifted and talented students? So bringing that lens into that same framework versus creating something completely new for the teachers in our district.
I love it. Like being in a school that's so focused on language. I have a bunch, like of teachers that do not want to incorporate or even, think to do gifted because language challenge, according to a lot, should be enough, or you're like, we don't have time. So this is really cool, like to share, it's not overwhelming.
Thank you. Yeah, and that link, I don't think that one is hyperlinked, but I will do that before you share the presentation.
Do you have it in Spanish?
No, chica. But what I do have in Spanish though is the characteristics and strategies document.
Cool.
So I thank you for mentioning that. I will add the Spanish version. And
Maybe
so
you could
that is
find someone to translate it. I don't know where you would find them, but maybe you could. That's a joke.
I was like, what?
I was also going to comment. I like how it's a quick hitter on best practices in gifted ed, just all in one place. It's really user friendly. I do like that a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think I don't know, but it just seems like the most familiar things can be within what we're already doing. There's definitely more teacher buy-in.
Right. And stuff also that can be implemented to the whole class. Because that's also a lot, right? Like I don't want to just, focus on my gifted and this. So this is like good for everybody, and it's clearly seen there.
Yes, thank you. And Dr. Bianco, would you like to? I don't know if there is a comment in the chat. That's very exciting.
So I just mentioned quickly that I have a publication coming out, a co-authored publication in Gifted Child Today. I think it's going to be out in the fall, but it's really looking at what are culturally responsive practices within gifted education to serve a Puerto Rican young student, multilingual learner who is also gifted but also has learning disabilities. So it's the intersection of learning disabilities, culturally responsive practices, and really honoring the ancestors, right, as a way to motivate her. So it was a really fun piece to write, and I'm looking forward to having it come out so I can share it with everybody.
Thank you. I'm excited to read it already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
I was wondering, when you've presented to teachers in various areas, MLE teachers and beyond, what seems to be the biggest aha moments, or like the most impactful pieces of this where teachers like, whoa, I never thought of that, or that's easy, I can start doing that?
Honestly, as far as like from what I've shared and it being applicable, when, like I mentioned, when Bertie and I just did our PL on Friday, the one document is that gifted characteristics and looks for MLLs is something that what we hear from the GT teachers is like, we could take this back, look at the characteristics, and then find 2-3 differentiation strategies that they could be implemented in the classroom.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm adding the Spanish link to the resources. That one, we just got the translations for it, so I just need to be more mindful of that.
Thank you, Ale. I'm wondering, and I don't know if you have the answer, Ale. I would think not, maybe Vanessa too, but we got so many newcomers now in our district, and newcomer students as of, interrupted education. And I just hear all my colleagues now here, because we had such a great influx here in my school of, well, on top of the diverse, like education that the kids may have in the same grade, just these newcomer kids that might be in 7th grade, 8th grade are not writing, can't read, even in Spanish, their native language, because of interrupted education, but they're clearly super gifted, right? And they're just eager to learn, and they want all of this. So I'm like, are we going to try to find something that's going to serve them specifically? Is there going to be, I don't know, because I couldn't even see them doing well on testing, even on an NGAT right now.
And that's actually, I had a conversation with Bertie, which is one of our managers in our department, about that. As far as like, I have one of my GT teachers in my cohort from Valdez, similar population as your school. Yep. Right away it was like, hey, can I nominate students? Teachers are telling me all these traits that they're seeing. And then it was kind of like, but are they ready to just engage in that right away, as far as like getting accustomed to so many other things? But she went ahead and nominated the students. So that was, I would say, one of the possibilities. And the students that she nominated were mostly 5th graders, and they all took the NGAT. I don't think this answers your, the whole question, but it was something that I saw at one of our schools.
I mean, I think it's a great way, a point to start and then see. But then I'm also wondering, maybe, a different approach in gifted education and strength-based would be much more effective, right, for them than just focusing on what they can't. Interest-based in this, it would be just so wonderful for them. But at least I think here in my school we have so many gaps that we're not even considering that. And I know our GT specialists wouldn't even have time for that too. So it's like a complete new thing, right?
Cecilia, would you be able to stop presenting?
Yes.
While we're chatting?
Oh, okay. Well, you stop presenting. I do want to take a moment to invite everyone, or if you know any families that may benefit from this, Cecilia and I are going to be hosting our last session, Foro de Familias para Superdotados, on May 1st from 6:30 to 7:30, and we will focus on twice exceptionality and advocacy. And this session is fully in Spanish through Google Meet.
Yeah, then we done the two first, and we had a bunch of people.
Yeah.
They were really good.
So
Parents were
please share the
super
flyer.
Yeah. We stayed over an hour on the first forum just because parents wanted to keep talking and talking. And we were like, wow, it's so important to open that space because parents just wanted to share about their kids. And they were like, oh, yes, mine too. And they're doing this too. So it's really powerful. So yeah, please share.
Thank you.
And now I will stop.
I just wanted to see your face while you were talking.
And I couldn't see anybody, just the presentation. So it's kind of weird just talking to the presentation. So this is better.
Dr. Bianco, one thing that you said with your work made me think of something that Alessandra and I, and Alejandra, who's on our call right now as well, have started getting exposed to. There's a wonderful lady named Anna Fanua, and she's based in Hawaii. She just graduated with her master's in gifted from Johns Hopkins, and she's developed, well, she's in the process of refining, but it's an AI tool that takes into consideration student needs, student interests, if there's any accommodations needed, their background and family characteristics, and it ties in student individualized lesson plans and ideas for ALPs.
Wow.
Tied to all of those things and NAGC standards. It is awesome. So we will make sure to share out that information with everyone soon. She's hoping to have something more widely available by hopefully by late summer.
Oh, that sounds really amazing. Thank you.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Other questions from folks online?
That flyer you shared at the end, is that somewhere that I can access as well? And I can stick it in our newsletters.
It's in our newest newsletter that will come out. If it wasn't in this Monday's newsletter, it'll be in next Monday's. But yeah, if we can, we'll also put it in the GTLCA site. And if we can put it in the chat right now, that'd be awesome also.
Yes, I'll send the link right now.
Dr. Bianco, I'd love to hear some of the opportunities related to the programs that you oversee at CU Denver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the programs that's near and dear to my heart is the Pathways to Teaching program. So I started it almost 14 years ago, and it is a dual enrollment program for high school students as a way to encourage high school students of color specifically, but it's open to everybody, to think about teaching as an act of social justice, right? So teaching isn't presented just as a understand child milestones and, you work from September to June. It's really looking at why teaching is such an important profession, especially for students who come from historically marginalized communities. So we've got programs all over the country. We've got programs in Colorado, but I think I have 8 or 9 high schools in Louisiana and the New Orleans area. We have programs in North Carolina. Anyway, so it's just a real passion project for me, and it's grown exponentially over the last decade, and I'm super proud of it. So we have high school students, for example, that graduated from DPS, Lincoln High School, right? Jocelyn, who's now in our doctoral program, is a math teacher at her alma mater at Lincoln High School. So it's really like she is a real star in terms of really looking at what a Grow Your Own program should look like, from high school to undergrad to working as a para to coming in as then a master's student and now a doctoral student. And so we have lots of anecdotal stories like that about our real success. And so I'm just passionate about it, and I'd love to have anybody who's interested, reach out to me, and I'm happy to share more work with you.
That's awesome. Can you
Yeah.
touch also on your doctoral program? I know you started talking to some of us on the line before we got started officially about doctoral opportunities.
Yeah, so at CU Denver, we have, and we value both a PhD and an EDD. And so over the years, the EDD, the educational doctorate, is really built more around for practitioners. So our EDD doctoral program, the courses are offered in the evening, since we know most of our students are working during the day or during the summer. Plus, the educational doctorate really is looking at research to practice and application. So it's really more for people who, are really going to put their research skills and their advanced knowledge to practice. That's not to say that our EDD students are not researchers, because they are, and they can certainly teach at higher ed institutions, but it's just a different focus. Our newest program is called JEDI, and that we're going to launch it this summer. My colleague, Dr. Robin Brandyhoff, is the person who's leading this program, and I'll be working with her and teaching some of the courses, but it stands for Justice, Education, Diversity, and Inclusion, and it's an EDD program that's fully remote. So we're hoping to have international students, so that we're piloting it this summer. So we're launching it with, I think, the first 22 students as our cohort, and we fully anticipate it to grow rapidly. In fact, I'm in touch with a group from East Africa, faculty that have master's degrees that want to get their doctorate degree, who will probably be in our second or third cohort. So anyway, it's really exciting work. And we also have other EDD programs that are a mix, hybrid courses, and PhD program that's online as well as in face-to-face. So check out all of our programs at CU Denver. I'm excited about this work.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and I'm recruiting our folks here to join us. So
Any last minute thoughts, questions, comments? We were just so happy to know both of you and to be able to share what you both are doing with a larger audience. And I hope you'll let us know within CAGT as well how we can continue partnering and continue being, supports of the super important work that you're both doing.
thank you again for the invitation. I appreciate it.
And thank you for allowing us to celebrate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight.